You're listening to the Sisterhood of Limitless Living podcast. I'm your host, Dr. April Moreno. I'm a public health specialist focused on integrative wellness and autoimmune living, supporting the community of women, where I help you to live your best quality of life through being your best self-advocate. Let's get started. Welcome to this episode of the Sisterhood of Limitless Living. I hope you are doing well. We are nearing the end of summer 2020, and I'm so disappointed, I have to say, because I didn't really get to do anything this summer, and I'm really sad about it. I spent my whole summer indoors in my house, and we were going to go on vacation, just rent a house, but then we decided that we weren't quite sure of the safety of contamination in staying at a rental, and because we have a puppy who loves to get her hands, her teeth on everything. So we just didn't know if it was going to be safe. So we decided kind of just right before the trip to cancel it. And it's so sad because it was like really at the end of the summer. And so all summer I was kind of looking forward to this trip of getting away. And then we decided that near the last minute, we decided, you know what, we don't feel so safe about going after all. So my summer, I feel like it barely existed. So I'm really sad about that. I mean, I felt the heat of the summer. I got nauseous from the heat of the summer. The worst part of all is the part where in my house, where you want to spend the most time, is the part of the house that has no air conditioning. It's the hottest part of the house. And I felt like I was on a hamster wheel the entire summer, doing the work that I do every day of the year. So I feel like I didn't really get the rest that I was hoping for. And, I could proactively and consciously make the choice to set aside the time for rest. But that's what that trip was for. So we decided not to go. So now I've got to figure out how to get the rest that I need and how to feel like I can have a sense of vacation, because I anticipate that this pandemic is not going to bring us back to any sense of normalcy for at least another several months. I don't expect to do normal things again till probably 2022, to be honest with you, just because of the time it takes to get the vaccine, get everyone on the same page, get a unified communication plan, to get a plan together for us to take action, to not be able to spread this virus from person to person as it wants to do. It's going to be a long journey ahead still. I think we're only about halfway through it, to be honest, if that. This brought me to the topic of the importance of rest, because this is where we're at now. And I am going to guess that I'm not the only one who's in this circumstance at the moment, especially because of the fact that people were home with their children, with their pets, with all their family members under one roof since like March, all summer long. And it felt like even when you think it's supposed to be vacation, it didn't feel like vacation. That's my guess, because of the fact that if you took time off work, you were still taking care of kids, you were still teaching them, probably summer school, homeschooling, whatever it was. And then now it's like fall semester all over again. So I am sure I'm not the only one who's exhausted right now. So today we're talking about the topic of rest. So in the background, you may be hearing my puppy. That's Bernadette. So we did get a second dog during the pandemic, and she is so cute. She's growing, but she really wants someone to play with her right now. So you might be hearing her in the background barking and stuff. Co-host Wellington is here doing his thing here in the podcasting room. And so really that was our summer. I think it was a puppy summer. That's all I can say about this summer. Other than that, it was podcasting, working, doing all the usual things, with some changes to the plan here as well. So I wonder how your summer went. I would love to hear how was your summer? How is it? We're still kind of in summer, but it's nearing the end and it is sad, although I'm looking forward to the cooler weather. I do want to announce the great news about the Autoimmune Community Institute, the nonprofit that's dedicated to health equity in autoimmune research, advocacy, and support. We are hosting a celebration, kind of our opening celebration online on October 10th at 10 a.m. Pacific time. 10, October 10th at 10 a.m. So it's easy to remember. And so save the date. We'll be doing this event online. And I wanted to cordially invite you to join us that day as we speak to various community members from the autoimmune space who are going to be sharing in terms of collaboration, their advocacy work, projects of the nonprofit. So I'm really excited about the work that we do. And so I do invite you to join us on October 10th at 10 a.m. Save the date. More information to come will be on our website at acicommunity.org, as in Autoimmune Community Institute. All right, so now we're going to be talking about this really important topic. We're going to be talking about rest today. I totally feel like I get plenty of sleep, thank goodness. And that's another topic for another episode, sleep. Resting throughout the day, taking those breaks and not overdoing things on my schedule. I hope I'm not the only one that's been struggling with that, but there are days when I get a call. It could be my psychologist. It could be someone I was supposed to meet with 10, 15 minutes later asking if I'm still going to be there. And so I feel awful about it. This summer, it's been pretty disorganized. I've been struggling with putting everything on one calendar. So my one calendar will say, oh, I've only got 2 appointments. And then I'll get a reminder kind of later from someone. And that was an appointment that was on my wall calendar. So I just need to coordinate myself a bit more. And a lot of it has had to do with the new nonprofit and how it's kind of been kind of groundbreaking mentally, even as I design new activities and new appointments, new ways of reaching out and partnering. So it's been a really interesting journey, and I've had a lot of trouble with resting through the day. And that's kind of typical for type A personalities, getting that sense of rest and relaxation throughout the day. So today I wanted to talk about a few things. First, the difference between rest and sleep. So there are definitely some differences, and one is not necessarily maybe better than the other. I don't even want to think of it that way, but they are different. And so the first thing I wanted to talk about is what I'm seeing online, and then I'll just go ahead and share my insights and my reflections on these things. So I'm looking here at this article from thatsleepguy.com. And this one came up when I did a Google search on the difference between sleep versus rest. There's like some difference between website that you can look at as well, that they differentiate all kinds of things that are seemingly similar. The difference between sleeping and resting on the sleepguy.com, thatsleepguy.com, says that rest is where you're being calm, but you're attentive to your surroundings. However, sleep is where you're tuning out your environment and the perception of your surroundings. So when you're sleeping, you're going through those stages of sleep, those brain activities, and then the rapid eye movement, all of that begins during sleep only, according to this article. And so I guess that's the first thing I wanted to talk about. Rest is where you are just relaxing. You are consciously making that time to relax. What's interesting though is like I think it was like episode 23 or so, around there, where I talk about the difference between meditation, relaxation, and guided imagery, and even transcendental meditation. So transcendental meditation is actually, in my view, quite similar to sleep. Maybe it's that bridge from rest to sleep. And actually, many times when I'm doing my transcendental meditation practice, I actually do fall asleep about 50 to 60% of the time, to be honest. Resting is where you're consciously relaxing. You know, there was this time when I was in high school, and I remember my stepmom and my dad would kind of look at me funny because I would just zone out during the day. I could just sit there, and I've seen people do it, where you just start zoning out. Like you just sit there, but I'll just lie there on my bed as a teenager. I'll just be like zoning out completely, just kind of letting my brain not do anything. And it was so relaxing. And they thought it was weird. They're like, what are you doing? I don't know. I'm just enjoying the feeling of not doing anything. And so that was my way of kind of zoning out in a way. I mean, I was awake and I was still somewhat aware of who I was and where I was and what was going on. But that feeling of zoning out, sometimes I think we need that. And I think that's one example of rest, where you just allow your brain to stop running around. For me, it's been kind of like this hamster wheel of activity and things that have been going on over the past several months, probably the past year overall, for all of 2020, to be honest, where I'm just constantly thinking about what is it that I'm going to do next? What is it that I need to plan next? What is it that I want to do next week or with the rest of my day? So it's constantly planning stuff. And in some way, it's a slight hamster wheel where the specifics are different, but the framework and the pattern is quite similar. From Monday through Friday, you do this and then you do that. And every day has this certain sense of pattern, although the specifics are different. So I do feel like I've been in kind of a hamster wheel. And I think that's what is so powerful about vacations, whether it's an exhausting vacation. There's so many different types of vacation, right? Because it's like a spa vacation, but then there's also like the adventure vacation. There's the educational trip vacation. Some people do like volunteerism, right? Volunteer vacations. So there's different ways to go on vacation. They're not necessarily all relaxation based. So maybe that's a third thing we can talk about here, the difference between like actual like going on a vacation versus rest versus sleep in this context, in this conversation, because vacation is powerful in the sense that with rest as well, vacation is powerful in the sense that you can actually get out of your thought patterns for a while. You can change your environment, change your circumstances, whatever the nature of that vacation is. But to be able to break out of a normal pattern is what makes it so valuable. And I guess that's maybe something even more to talk about later on when we're actually able to go on vacation again. But being able to break outside of the pattern, the certain ruts and patterns of thinking is what's so powerful. And I think I miss that so much. And I think rest is one possible way to get closer to that. All of this to say I needed a rest, and I still kind of need a rest. I need to change my normal patterns of thinking in this hamster wheel. I wanted to talk about this, the importance of resting consciously to make your mind just rest. Make your mind stop all that activity, stopping from cleaning the house, stopping from doing the chores even, stopping from having to do exertion of action, exertion of thought, exertion of acting out upon a thought, to actually just finally sit there and rest in contentment. So I think meditation is very similar, very connected to this concept of rest. And I think also like the transcendental meditation as part of a meditation process is very restful because of the way that you're actually able to stop thinking about things. You're able to just zone out. How often does someone actually tell you to zone out? It seems like we're told that zoning out is a negative thing. People look at you like, hello, but where are you? But zoning out is what we need sometimes. And I think that in this time where I can't go on a vacation, I think I need to zone out even more and break out of this constant pattern of thinking in this hamster wheel of activity, of patterns, and kind of jumping off that hamster wheel for a little while and just resting throughout the day. This is a really good part of this article from sleepguy.com. Certain signs that your body needs rest could be exhaustion, dehydration, the inability to make decisions, being annoyed by things, and then having sore muscles. I've been having several of these, definitely the dehydration, things that annoy me, like certainly like I just want to be alone sometimes because there's just so much activity with a puppy, with a dog, and just having all family around. It's just sometimes I just, the TV's on, the music's on, and I just want to get away and have things be quiet for a little while as well. So I feel like I do need rest, mental exhaustion sometimes as well. Resting is not necessarily it's not sleeping. You're still able to enjoy things like nature. You're still able to calm the mind. You're still able to zone out and still be awake. So it's just a great way, and it's a more socially acceptable way. If, let's say, you had to go back to work now, it's a socially acceptable way to recharge, and resting is so important. Here I'm looking at this article from Inc.com. This one's on a day of rest, 12 scientific reasons that it works. So let's talk a little bit more in depth about rest, the power of rest. Taking a regular rest time every day, if possible, is really important. To consciously take time mentally, individually, maybe hourly even, to take that rest without people necessarily knowing that you're resting. There are some people I've worked with in the past that are just really good at staring at the computer screen, looking like they're reading the computer, and they're so good at it, but they're actually resting. I want to know how to do that. So this one here talks about 12 reasons why rest is important. And so it reduces your stress, number one, and we all need that if we're part of the autoimmune community. There have been so many numerous examples, numerous accounts, and numerous stories about how stress is so connected to autoimmune relapses and autoimmune damage, to be honest. Toxic stress and the autoimmune system are not friends. Giving yourself a chance to move. There's a book out there called Walking Meditation, various activities of walking meditation. So you can actually go take a walk and just notice nature, focus on something intentional that brings you to a state of rest and calm. So giving yourself a chance to move in the meantime is wonderful. Taking that break from your work on a regular basis can reduce inflammation and the risk of heart disease. That's their number 3 on this Inc.com article. And then they even link to a scientific article. Yay, a research article on self-reported sitting time and markers of inflammation, insulin resistance, and adiposity. So this is from the American Journal of Preventive Medicine. Right now, I'm going to define adiposity for you because I don't use that word. It's a condition of being severely overweight or obese. So in this article, sedentary behavior has emerged as an independent risk factor for chronic diseases. I believe that. That's what happened to me when my autoimmune relapse started. I was sitting at a desk job, driving 4 hours of commute time minimum. And that's when it happened to me. The first major symptoms of autoimmunity were in a sedentary job. Reducing inflammation is a benefit of rest. They also talk about how it, in general, increases or improves your immune system. Chronic stress is also a depressor of the immune system. Mental energy as you take time away from work, clearing the mind. If you spend too much time working on a problem, sometimes it's harder to get to the solution unless you take time away and get that rest and get out of that mental pattern of thinking. You can become more productive with rest. Your short-term memory may improve. I've got a couple more articles that I wanted to share with you. This one here is on the 4 surprising benefits of rest. This is from eomega.org. It's the Omega Institute in New York. So they've got an article online about the 4 surprising benefits of rest. So here, it gives you access to bursts of inspiration. I love that. I get inspiration when I exercise. I get inspiration when I'm spending time alone as well. They consider rest as one of those catalysts to inspiration. So meeting your non-work self is important. You know how many people get a sense of identity by their job? Who are you without your job? In the autoimmune community, sometimes it's like, who are we without our autoimmune disease as well, right? So who are we as individual people? Who are we as human beings, unique human beings with a unique purpose? So rest, taking some time away from work, being very conscious of taking time away can help us to discover more clearly who we are, what we want to do with our lives, and to get that independent sense of inspiration that you wouldn't get from other people around you influencing your daily activities and daily thought patterns. This is an interesting one. With rest, that you can lose fat and feel less hungry. However, they are associating rest here with sleep. So this number 3 is actually referring to a University of Chicago study on insufficient sleep undermines dietary efforts to reduce adiposity, which again is just obesity. So slightly different overlapping theme of sleep and how you can actually lose body fat by sleeping. I hope that rest would be a similar thing. My guess is that it is, because if you're able to reduce your stress levels, you're able to reduce the cortisol and reduce some of the factors that are connected to gaining weight. So number 4 is basically that you can become a better problem solver, similar to the last article in Inc.com. Being able to step away from your work is a way for you to develop new ways of solving problems. So I'm noticing 2 patterns here. We're noticing that we're not always seeing a differentiation between sleep and rest, but we know that there's clearly a difference because rest is when we're awake. I just imagine a hammock, right? Someone sitting and lying in a hammock by the beach. That's rest. Falling asleep over 8 hours, ideally, or whatever it is for you at night, that's more clearly sleep. And then I'm also noticing this theme in these articles that rest is kind of the opposite of work. So identifying ourselves with a specific career or job or full-time identity, 40-hour identity, and then identifying ourselves in our actions, our activities outside of that 40-hour activity is what we're seeing as a definition of rest in these articles, which I think is kind of interesting. I kind of think a little bit differently than that. In this last article, I wanted to talk about, this is from psychcentral.com. We know what rest is. We know what sleep is. Sleep is where you're pretty much less conscious of your current environment. You are able to dream. You're able to believe in your mind that you actually are somewhere else, somewhere in a different time, somewhere in a different place. But how to actually rest? So in this article on Psych Central, this one here is about how to really rest by Margarita Tartakovsky. It seems silly, she says, to write an article about rest. Rest is supposed to be like breathing. It's supposed to be automatic. But for many of us, rest is not part of our lives, not genuine, regular rest. I have to agree with that. You have to take time to rest. You have to consciously stop to get that rest. How many people do you know in kind of normal, non-pandemic circumstances work through their lunch breaks? Some people don't take those breaks. Some people take the breaks to go and talk about work, right? So rest is not always a normal part of our day. Like real rest where you're not thinking about your work. Many of us are too focused on striving and never stopping. I have to admit, I'm one of those people. I'm focused on striving. Sometimes we wait until it's too late or until we're so exhausted that we have no other choice but to rest. And you know what that can often associate with? Relapse. Consciously taking that time to relax our minds, get creative, come up with new solutions to problems can help us along this autoimmune journey so that we can delay, prevent relapses, prevent inflammatory episodes. Diet is wonderful. Diet is important. But if we have toxic stress going on inside of our bodies, that diet is just part of the equation. We do need to find a way to keep our bodies and our minds calm. So rest is so crucial throughout the day, not even, in my opinion, not even just once a day, throughout the day, finding ways to get that rest. This is really interesting here. Do you get bored when you try to rest? Some people might feel bored, maybe restless when they're told to rest. Feel boredom, anger, feeling trapped. I get that because there's another layer under this rest where you're actually having to deal with yourself. I noticed when I was working full-time in the public health setting, driving the 4 hours a day, 2 hours there, 2 hours back, minimum, that when I was busy, my mental health felt more stable. Once things got quiet, let's say I'm in the office and it's a kind of slow morning, or once I'm home for the weekend, I would feel anxiety. I would feel this sense of, I have to deal with something here. There's something in my life, there's some kind of pattern that's giving me anxiety. And working helped me to cover it up. I think that's a really important point. If we do rest, what is it we may have to deal with? What is it that we are trying to avoid? This is the power in this article on psychcentral.com. Ideas on how you can really rest. Searching beneath the surface, just as I just mentioned, find out why you feel the need to constantly stay busy. Understanding the power of rest is their second one here. 70% apparently of visits to the doctor are due to stress-related health issues. Rest, in this article, their quote is, "Rest is the only way to engage the part of our nervous system that allows for relaxation." This is important stuff. This is the only way for us to relax during the day, taking that time to consciously rest. It helps us to show up for others and for our lives. Another tip is to rethink the narrative. So this is a slow process so that we begin to reframe the narrative to accepting rest, so that we don't completely, continuously attach our success and our worth and our value and our identity to constantly doing things, human doings versus human beings. Practicing acceptance, accepting who you are, things as they are, the mindfulness journey that we talk about so much. I like this quote here. Vincent, in this article, says, "I did not expect this, but I accept it." Being intentional to rest, taking that time to rest. Slow, deep, long breaths, taking in your surroundings, spending some time in nature, and then focusing. I think journaling is a great way, a meditative practice. Journaling, drawing, drinking coffee, drinking some tea. Tea time is a wonderful way to rest, I think. Being very mindful of the drink that you're drinking, the heat of the tea, the flavor of the tea, and slowly drinking this cup of tea is so nice. Watching the sunset, sitting on the beach. So these are some tips on how to ideally find rest and the difference between rest and sleep. And then in summary, as autoimmune thrivers of the Sisterhood of Limitless Living, rest is a crucial part of life. One of my favorite social media accounts is the Nap Ministry. And this person who organizes the Nap Ministry often talks about the importance of rest as a revolutionary and powerful activity. Just taking the time to rest, relax, and sleep. Just to know that it's okay for us to just be, to be human beings. So powerful. To know that it's okay. And again, as part of the autoimmune community, there are going to be days when the entire day is going to be about rest. And that's okay. There are days when we don't have to do anything for our well-being. That is the topic for today, the importance of rest, what it is, how it's different from sleep, and why we need to be very consciously resting frequently in our lives along this autoimmune journey. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and I hope you're getting some really good rest out there as summer vacation, if you can call it that this year with the pandemic, comes toward a close. And if you are still exhausted, just finding that way to consciously, proactively rest. Take care. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Sisterhood of Limitless Living podcast, Season 2. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Look forward to having you join us in upcoming episodes as well, where we continue to talk about integrative wellness and autoimmune living our best lives, being our own best advocates. Feel free to subscribe on iTunes to the podcast, and we are also available on several other locations as well. For more information about Dr. April Moreno, you can visit aprilmorenophd.com. Take care.